Hello, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Brandon Mack. I'm the Director for Partnerships and Community Outreach for Duval County Public Schools. And a lot of what I do is connecting with community stakeholders. I share a lot about what the district is doing, what our different initiatives are, how people can get involved, and try to be that connector. And so today's course is entitled Speaking with Confidence, but I'll actually start out talking a little about networking. Building relationships with people, and then we'll kind of gradually go into some of the public speaking parts. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the tips and some of the things I keep in mind when I'm public speaking or when I'm trying to build those relationships. I'll share with you some spaces that you can build those relationships with people, some spaces where you have an opportunity to plug in and just practice and kind of develop your craft of public speaking and get yourself more comfortable with public speaking, because that's a lot of the problem for most people, right? So we're excited to share with you today, and we will hop right into Speaking with Confidence. Okay, as I mentioned, we want to start out talking a little bit about opportunities to network. Networking is not just networking, but think of it as another way for you to build those skills and to get more comfortable with speaking, especially in front of people that you may not be familiar with or that you may not know. So we just want to talk through some of the opportunities to build those relationships and network, and just give yourself an opportunity to get more comfortable with the concept of speaking and talking to people, for those of you who may not be as comfortable. So the first of those, connect with the Jacksonville Chamber of Commerce. There's different opportunities and groups they have there. There's different chamber councils for different areas of town. So if you're interested in connecting with people from the Arlington area, there's an Arlington council. There's a council on the west side. There's also councils for different groups. There's a women's council. There's an IT council. I will say that those groups are groups that you do have to pay to be a part of, but it's not a large investment for the amount of relationships you're able to build, the type of connections you kind of get into one room. So I would encourage you to consider looking at the Chamber of Commerce. Most of those spaces give you an opportunity to network and meet a lot of different people, but a lot of times you have an opportunity to also stand up in front of those groups and share. And that's an opportunity for you to practice your craft of speaking. Impact Jacks is a part of the chamber, but they have a group targeted towards young professionals. So I'd also encourage our young professionals that may be watching to take advantage of that. Secondly, connecting with professional organizations that align with your interests, right? There are different groups, whatever the fields are. There's groups for educators. There are auxiliary groups for healthcare professionals. There are groups for public relations professionals. Just about every field that you can possibly think of, there's some type of professional organization or group that's connected to that group of people. And so keep in mind those things. Those are always a good space to build relationships in professionally, because of course you get to know different people in different areas. I'd also encourage you to check out city council meetings, your school board meetings, and also I'll talk about Citizens Planning Advisory Committees separately, but especially for your city council meetings and for school board meetings, a lot of people don't realize that, they see the structure of those meetings and it's a structured space where a meeting happens, which is true. However, it also allows you an opportunity to connect and build with people. A lot of times there are a lot of different organizations that make it a part of what they do to attend those meetings, to participate in those meetings, especially when it's around a certain cause or something they are supporting. And so take advantage of that opportunity to connect with people. I know when I attend, I always run into someone I know or might connect with someone else that I don't know. So it's a great opportunity just to meet people. Citizens Planning Advisory Committees are completely separate, but they're part of the city. And basically it's an opportunity for citizens that live within certain areas to come share their concerns with city officials. So you typically have representation from the different departments of the city. School district typically participates in those so that community members can share their concerns. But once again, also a great space. I know there's some city council members that attend those meetings to hear concerns of those that live in their areas. So it's a great opportunity just for you to plug in and just to connect to different people. Look at what things are offered by local fraternities and sororities. I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, but there are a lot of different fraternals and fraternal organizations and sororities that host different activities that give you an opportunity to plug and connect. And I'll tell you that even if it's an event that's intended to be entertainment, it's still, those entertainment events are oftentimes some of the best spaces to connect to people, because people are naturally comfortable when they're in that type of environment. So it's a lot easier sometimes to build relationships. So take advantage of some of those things. If you attend a faith-based institution, don't forget that there are plenty of opportunities to connect there. The reality is people that are in our faith-based institutions are connected somewhere. And so a lot of times we don't think of those spaces and those people that come to those spaces with us as a resource, but you should, especially when those are people that you, under normal circumstances, might probably see on the regular. You have an opportunity to connect with them. So just keep that in mind when you're looking for spaces to connect and kind of build some bridges. And also, very, very important, identify a professional mentor that can help make connections for you. I believe in mentorship at every age level. We talk about it a lot as it relates to kids, but I feel like that's extremely important as you grow and develop into a professional, to have someone who can give you some advice, who can guide you. That person may not be somebody that you talk to every week or even every month, but someone that you can reach out to and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. But also you can use that person to say, hey, I know you know this person. Would you mind introducing me, or would you not mind connecting the two of us? I'd like to talk to them about X, Y, Z. So keep that in mind as you are trying to build relationships and network. Strategies for networking. So these are just different kind of tips and things that I use to, as I'm kind of out building relationships with people. One of those things, depending on the event, do your homework on who's in the room. A lot of times, depending on who's hosting the event, maybe who's sponsoring the event, that will tell you a lot oftentimes about who may be in the room or who may not be in the room. So just do your research. Look at the audience of the group that you're going to. Just see who's in the room and see if you can determine who are those people that you're interested in meeting, or those people that it's important for you to meet. Manage your expectations, which I think is really important. You won't know everyone before leaving, and that's okay. The goal is to decide, whether that's I want to connect with 2 new people tonight, or if that's I want to connect with this one person, this one specific person. So set some kind of attainable goals, even in networking. I think that's important, especially when you're kind of getting into that world of trying to push yourself out there to do things. Each contact with people subconsciously builds your relationship with them. I'll say, if you think about it, your relationships from family to often to work, to I mentioned faith-based institutions earlier, or just people in general, your friends, your relationship developed as you had an opportunity to connect, have conversations, find out what things you have in common, and build a relationship. And so the same thing needs to be said about networking. As you create spaces for you to see people, you might say, let's go grab lunch under normal circumstances. You may put yourself in the same place where that person or those people would be, but every one of those contacts builds a relationship subconsciously for you and for that person that you're trying to connect with. So keep that in mind. Take a friend to events to make you feel more relaxed. I would say for people who are very comfortable, this may not necessarily apply, but for those of us, once again, who are trying to kind of ease into networking and building those relationships, take someone that makes you feel comfortable. If you have a friend that that you feel will be a good person to kind of be beside you, so that you're not uncomfortable and you can more freely talk to people, take advantage of that person. Take advantage of them being there and have them to come with you. I'd also say ask for introductions for those you want to meet. So if you know people in the room, ask them. If you see them talking to someone you want to meet, take advantage of that. Ask them, hey, can you help connect me to this person? I'd love to talk to them or pick their brain or whatever that is. Listen and pay attention. Follow up with questions. People will know you're listening. This is extremely important because there's nothing worse in the world than to be in a conversation with someone, that person says a whole lot of everything, and then you don't know how to respond because your brain drifted off to what you have to do when you leave, right? So one of the most important things in networking is to be attentive. Pay attention to that person so that you can respond, so that you can ask questions, so that you can follow up and make comments. That's extremely important in building relationships with people. Also, share personal stories and conversations, especially when they align with the other person's interests. So if a person tells you that they skate every Saturday, I go ice skating, and you used to skate when you were in middle school, right? And you somehow got away from it. That might be a conversation starter. You never know. And so take advantage of those things where there's some connection there. Also, avoid potentially sensitive subjects such as politics, religion, etc., except when in common company. And I feel like that's fairly self-explanatory, but you want to avoid things that will unnecessarily destroy a relationship before it gets started. It's different when we have people that we already have a relationship with and we want to have those conversations and we can have a difference of opinion, but you don't want to meet someone and try to intentionally infuse conversation that'll be problematic just when you're trying to get to know each other. Those are some sensitive topics that people can sometimes be very passionate about. Follow up with those that you meet within 2 days max. That's key to people just remembering who you are. The reality is, particularly with very busy people, particularly with very busy people, they go to several of these events, they do different things, and if you don't follow up with people within a reasonable time frame, they'll forget. Not intentionally, but it's just the nature of the beast. And last on this list of strategies, I want to say, be memorable. First impressions are lasting ones. And a couple things about that. I'm sure we've heard about, first impressions are lasting ones or some variation of that. But being memorable is important. And that kind of ties into what I talked about. Your conversation can make you memorable. Different people have different things that make them memorable. There's some people that, they might do it because they like it, but if someone has a very different or distinct pair of glasses or a style of glasses that they like to wear, they might just like those glasses. However, that helps people remember them. Me, for example, I love bow ties. I wear bow ties. I'm a bow tie person. However, I find that that's often how people remember me. They remember seeing me with the bow tie on. So in addition to those things that make you memorable just as a person in general, think about those things that will, you'll be able to make a connection with someone after the fact outside of conversation too. Even lapel pins. I wear lapel pins a lot. I'll wear, things sometimes as conversation starters, fraternity or other organizations I'm connected to. So keep that in mind. Okay, and I will share this kind of activity. You can do it at a later point with some family, some friends, or just a group you're working with. And it's basically an activity of a continuous story. And so someone would start the story, you talk for maybe 20, 30 seconds, the next person picks up the story and continues to talk. And you can kind of continue that as long as you want to until you get ready to stop or give yourself a set time frame to do it. And of course, the person, you're not going to know what the person before you is going to say, right? And so you have to listen if you want to be able to pick up the story and actually make it make sense. And essentially, it's a listening exercise, right? So back to what I was talking about in building relationships with people, you have to be able to listen to someone's conversation and respond. And so this is just a good activity to kind of help train your mind on not wondering when you're having conversation and to actually listen to figure out how you need to respond. Okay, verbal communication. And so we'll start to go a little bit transition towards more of the public speaking tips and things along those lines. One, verbal communication is critical, not just at home, but it's critical in the workplace. It's critical outside of the workplace. Verbal communication is critical in everything we do. And it's important that we tell people that we're able to explain to people in a way that makes sense how we feel, what things we want, what things we need, um, whatever those things are, but it's extremely important, excuse me. Also, verbal communication, it makes you marketable to employees, right? So if you are employers, I apologize, it makes you more marketable to employers. So if you're a person that knows how to properly convey an organization's message, you're a person that knows how to take an idea and you can speak on behalf of a company or an organization, that's a very important job skill for a lot of employers. They want people that can communicate. Some roles, like such as mine, they want you to be able to communicate with the public. There's customer service roles that have a similar type of thing, but even being able to communicate with your coworkers and the people that you work with on a daily basis. Already touched briefly on the fact that verbal communication you can use to convey what you want and or need. And also important in the public speaking world is it allows people to have an opportunity to see the things that you're passionate about. And I believe that in us talking and in us doing public speaking, you have to do it in a way so that people can hear your passion about what you're talking about. If you are out trying to fundraise money to support a nonprofit, let's say you're volunteering for a nonprofit and you said, I'll go out and help you raise money. If you go to speak to a group and you say, this is very important, this is why we do what we do, we need money, that is not going to inspire people to give and to really support your cause, right? And so the things that you speak about, you want to speak about them in a way that you are passionate and that people, your audience, can feel that passion from you as you're speaking. To remember before public speaking, I wrote in my slide here that everyone gets nervous and it's not just you. Everyone is probably a stretch, honestly. But what I would tell you is the majority of people, I would dare to say, probably at some level get nervous. Everyone's nervousness level is different, but I do a lot of public speaking. I talk in front of people all the time. I talk to people all the time. But the reality is there's just something about doing it every time. Now, I have myself trained to where I know how to push past those first few seconds. I fall into my comfort zone, and then I can continue to say what I need to say, and I'm very comfortable doing it. However, I don't start out that way when I start public speaking. I get nervous at times, right? And so it's important to know that you're not alone in that. Even a lot of the people that you see that are very, very good public speakers, there's still some feeling of nervousness before they get started each time. So keep that in mind. You're not alone. Know your audience when possible. So this is extremely important because if you're talking to outside of work, I mentor youth. And so my conversations with them and how I speak to them is completely different from how I speak when I'm facilitating a class, or maybe even how I speak when I'm in the office and we're doing a normal meeting or talking about something. So keep in mind that your audience will change how you speak, the things you say. I know one of the things we're guilty of in the professional world is, especially around here, people will use acronyms, and not anything intentional, but when you work with people in your space all the time, you use acronyms and they're common and everyone knows them. But we have to keep in mind, especially when we're speaking to groups outside of those people that we work with, that they may not have a clue what those acronyms mean. And so now we have left people out of the conversation and left them behind because we've used an acronym that they're probably scared to stop you to ask, right? So keep those things in mind. Your audience will determine a lot about your speech and what things you refer to during your presentation. Be prepared. Extremely important, especially when you are not exactly comfortable with public speaking, or if you're new to public speaking. Being prepared is extremely important in helping you become more comfortable, because when you know what you're going to say, you know what you're going to do, you know where you're going to be, have everything ready to go, you're going to be in a much better place to be successful when you're prepared. There's a lot of people that can pick up anything and go for it and talk and speak, but there's a lot of people that, need to take time to really be prepared and really be comfortable. It's similar to taking a test. You want to study before you take a test. So if you are developing your public speaking skills, you want to prepare yourself before you actually do your speaking. And lastly, one of my catchphrases that I use with my mentees all the time is get uncomfortable, right? And if public speaking, if talking to people, if networking, if any of that is uncomfortable to you as you're doing it, that means you're growing, right? That means growth is occurring, because you are, even though you're uncomfortable, you're forcing yourself to do it. You're forcing yourself to fight through those feelings of fear. And as you're doing that, you're going to get more and more and more skilled at what you're saying. You're going to get more and more and more comfortable. And so just be willing to get uncomfortable as you're trying to grow and develop as a public speaker, because discomfort is guaranteed to be a part of it as you're growing. So next, we'll go through 6 steps to public speaking success. I'll talk a little bit about, kind of some of the things I keep in mind as I'm talking or preparing or whatever the case is as it relates to groups. Practice. The old notion of practice makes perfect is extremely true. And as I mentioned, I talked about networking earlier because that gives you an opportunity to get comfortable, to build relationships, to put yourself in a place of talking to people that you may not know in a smaller setting where you're not the center of attention, right? But there's also a lot of other opportunities for you to give yourself an opportunity just to stand up and practice speaking. And you may be accomplishing some other goal, but at the same time, you're getting an opportunity to practice. The Toastmasters is another organization that is dedicated to public speaking. So they're a nonprofit organization and they do public speaking, they do leadership development type of work. There is a small membership fee for them. I can't remember exactly what the number is, but there's an annual fee and then there's like a $20 new member fee. So there are some fees involved, but organizations such as Toastmasters, there may be some others that are out there as well, but join organizations that are going to give you a chance to public speak. Join organizations that will give you a chance to get up in front of people and work through that, because that's the only way you get better. Take leadership positions that will force you into public speaking. Not something, of course, that's easy if you're not comfortable with it, but it's necessary, right? When you are in a space of having to provide a report, having to stand up and speak about something, having to stand up and share about a particular event or something, all of those things, as small as you may try to, you may tell yourself they are in your head, all of those things help develop and build you as a speaker. So keep those things in mind. Also, use a mirror. or a close friend or a family member to give yourself an opportunity to practice. Sometimes, occasionally, just depending on what it is, I might stand in front of a mirror and just give myself a couple seconds to figure out what I want to look like while I'm talking, to kind of visualize myself as people are listening to me and people are seeing me. And also, same thing, close family members, friends, get their feedback, and ask them for not the "I love you" feedback, but ask them for the honest, what do you think about this? If you heard me say this presentation, or if you heard me speak somewhere, what would you feel about me as a speaker if I wasn't your family member or if I wasn't your friend? So use your resources and those people around you to that you might be more comfortable around to get feedback about your skills. Step 2, know the room. And I touched on it briefly earlier, but this really ties into preparedness. If possible, arrive early to walk through the space. And of course, this isn't always possible, just depending on who you're speaking in front of or who you're talking to. But I found this to be extremely helpful, particularly when you're not familiar with the space. So if it's a new place you're going to speak at or somewhere you're supposed to be that you're sharing, then give yourself an opportunity to try to get there early before people start showing up, just so that you can give yourself some time to get acquainted with the space. That being there early also gives you an opportunity to test your equipment. So make sure your PowerPoint is working, make sure your audio is working. If you have a mic or something along those lines, just to make sure that everything is doing what you needed to do before you actually get started making your presentation. And while walking around the room, visualize yourself being being successful. And this is back to what I talked about earlier. Just being there early will allow you an opportunity to do this. So you might be able to walk around, figure out, what rows you want to walk between, where you want to be in the audience when you're talking or when you're sharing, and you can just visualize yourself actually doing it and being successful at delivering your speech. Small things can help ease your nerves. So all of these things might seem like relatively small things. They honestly won't necessarily take a whole lot of time unless you're having some equipment issues, but all of them are extremely important in creating a comfortable place for you to be successful at your public speaking. Make eye contact. This is an old one that we've all heard, but it is truly extremely important. I'm sure a lot of us have seen speakers that will, pull out the paper and they'll look down at the paper the entire time, or they'll have the podium on the paper on the podium and they're looking down at the podium the entire time. And those things are things that you have to work yourself out of and grow out of, because that eye contact is important in connecting to your audience. And so that reinforces your connection to your audience and honestly helps them listen to you, right? Because if people don't know that you're looking at them, that gives their eyes an opportunity to look at their phones, to look at the piece of paper that's in their hand, to look at the person across the room and what they're doing. So by making eye contact with people, that keeps them connected to you, and it helps keep other people from being distracted when you're making that eye contact. I also say that it's important in showing confidence in what you're saying. One of the things that we don't necessarily think about, but one of the most important things that makes a phenomenal public speaker is confidence. And so everything that you do in public speaking, you want it to come off as confident. Once again, that's something you might have to grow and develop, but we want those things to come off as confident. So show confidence in what you're saying by making that eye contact as you're talking with people. And make sure that you share that eye contact throughout the room. So don't look at one person the entire time. Don't look at one side of the room the entire time. But, make eye contact with people throughout the room during your presentation. I will say everyone may not be looking at you. Every face might not be a friendly face. So you still want to try to make eye contact with those people, but find those friendly smiling faces that'll kind of encourage you to focus on as you're talking and as you're sharing with the group. It'll be extremely helpful for you. Step 4, watch your body language. This is another thing that's also tied to confidence. If you think about it, it may not be necessarily, but it's perceived as being tied to your confidence when people are watching you as a public speaker. So you don't want to slouch or lean over a podium as you're talking, because those things don't give off the confidence that you want to give off as a public speaker. Keep your eyes focused on your audience. I already talked a little bit about that. Keep your body relaxed and make sure you have great posture. You don't want to be, stiff and not able to move. Everyone doesn't use their hands, but hands are okay. Excuse me, using your hands are okay as long as you don't overuse them, because it can become distracting to a group, right? So keep your body relaxed and just let yourself be comfortable in that space, and make sure you have great posture. Once again, you just don't want to lean across things and not be, not look poised and confident. Avoid fidgeting with your hands. This is another thing that a lot of people naturally fidget with their hands because they're nervous, right? And so once again, it's tied back to that confidence. So even if you have to remove things that you can possibly fidget with, that's my advice. Sometimes, we'll tend to have a pen or something on the stand that we may not even necessarily need. So if you know that you're a fidgeter, move those things that you can fidget with so that you won't be able to fidget. Take those things out of your way. And I've already touched on the hand things. Just, it's okay to use hand gestures as long as you don't distract from your message. I use my hands in my speaking often. Step 5, state your opinions with conviction. Once again, another tie into that confidence. Try to avoid the use of words like I think, maybe, things that may not necessarily come across as strong words or strong phrases. So the words that you want to use, you want to focus on those things that are strong. Words, your word choice matters when you're talking. And words can either convey strength or they can convey weakness. And as a speaker, you want your words and the things that you say to convey strength to your audience. Remember that if you say it like you mean it, people will not only believe you, but believe in you as well. And that goes back to the passion, right? You say things that you say with conviction. You say those things with certainty. I'm not saying to say things that you don't know or things you're not sure about to sound confident if you don't know the answer to something. It's okay to say that you don't know the answer to something, but the things that you prepare to say or the things that you share, just be confident and say it like you mean it, and people will believe the message that you're trying to share, the things that you're trying to get across, excuse me. And finally, just in closing in that section, speak with what I call purposeful passion. As a speaker, I've grown as a speaker over the years. I used to be what I would call, kind of an entry public speaker. I was okay with the words, and I could figure out how I wanted my message to sound. But one of the things I really had to grow in was how to allow people to feel my passion about what it is that I'm talking about. And so that's something that's kind of the next level as you're kind of building out your public speaking, is getting yourself to a place where you figure out how you speak with passion. Everyone, that looks different for everyone, but figure out what works for you and how you can allow people to feel your passion as a public speaker. Step 6, get feedback from someone you trust. You can find out what you're good at or what you do well when you're speaking. If you're getting feedback, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, letting those people hear you and provide feedback, someone that you trust, if you can tell them to be honest with you. It also helps you identify problem areas. I'll touch on this a little bit later too, but one of my personal things that I continue to work on is the use of when I am trying to think about what I want to say, I don't just stop completely or pause all the time, I'll use And so that's one of the things as a public speaker that I continue to work on even now. So find people that can help you identify those problem areas, because you can't address a problem until you know that it's a problem, right? And watching recordings can also help you identify areas for improvement. It's extremely important to, give yourself, and it doesn't have to be a full recording. You don't have to record yourself for a full speech, but even if you just want to, pull out your phone, set it up somewhere and record yourself for a couple of minutes speaking to figure out what things you need to do better, right? And that's one of those ways, if you're shy and you don't necessarily want to speak in front of people that you are comfortable with, and you would rather just kind of do it on your own for starters, set up your cell phone, set up a computer, use anything to just try to record yourself and get a feel for what things you can improve on as a public speaker. So kind of in closing from those public speaking steps, we've talked about quite a few different areas, but just kind of in closing for this section, I wanted to share with you a couple of strategies. One of those things is to plan appropriately, which I've talked about the importance of being prepared. The more prepared you are, I promise you, the more comfortable you'll be. Practice. Practice truly does make perfect, or practice at least makes better, right? So we want to make sure that you practice as much as possible. Every time you practice, and practice doesn't necessarily have to be you practicing by yourself or practicing in front of family and friends. Remember, there's different opportunities with different organizations that are free, organizations you might already be connected to practice public speaking while doing something else beneficial for your community. Engage with your audience. That's extremely important. When I do presentations, particularly if I'm teaching a class or something along those lines, I figure out ways to engage with my audience. I typically put in different activities, just different things to involve them in what we're doing. I ask for feedback, right? So I may ask a question, an open-ended question, and let them answer the question, and then start a dialogue about whatever that is. So find ways to engage your audience, because the other thing, unless you are a keynote speaker for an event and you're speaking for, 15 minutes straight or whatever that is, you want to find ways to engage your audience, because you don't want to get to a place where you're talking too long and you lose your audience. So engage with your audience so you don't lose your audience. Also, once again, just pay attention to that body language we talked about already. Think and speak positively. Make sure that you are not psyching yourself out. And I think you can be particularly guilty of this if you are new to public speaking or you're trying to grow into public speaking. We have a way as humans of psyching ourselves out of the things we aren't comfortable with or the things we don't know how to do. It's easy to say, you're going to mess this up. You're going to stumble across this word, right? Don't psych yourself out beforehand. Give yourself a chance. Think positively, speak positively about it. Speak positively into yourself. Surround yourself with those people that are going to also encourage you in doing what you're doing, in talking, so that that negativity will cause you issues if you decide to receive that. So just make sure you're giving yourself positive thoughts, particularly right before you're doing your public speaking. Make sure that you project your voice and you speak clearly. This is, of course, extremely important as well. If people are in a room and they can't hear you, they're not going to listen to you. So you want to make sure that your voice is projecting clearly, that people can hear your words. Make sure that you're enunciated, you're pronouncing your words appropriately so that people can actually hear what you're saying. And listen to yourself. I've already touched on it. I told on myself earlier, but avoid saying things like, and I think, once again, one of those things I'm working on, even with the amount of public speaking that I do. So Don't be so hard on yourself, but listen to yourself and record yourself, figure out those ways that you can get feedback on things that you can improve. And last but certainly not least, which is one of the major points of this presentation, is get uncomfortable. We have to be willing to get uncomfortable if we desire to grow. So whether you're trying to strengthen your public speaking skills for your career, whether you're trying to strengthen your public speaking skills for an organization you're involved in and you're trying to grow in that organization, or whether you just all around want to be a better public speaker, just know that to do that, you have to be willing to get uncomfortable, and you're going to have to force yourself into positions that are going to give you a chance to speak in front of groups, to speak individually to people that you may not know or may not have any type of comfort level. So I just want to encourage you to get uncomfortable and be willing to get uncomfortable. And in closing, I just want to share another quick closing activity that I usually do, but you all can do this at your home with your families. I encourage you to even do it maybe with your friends. Maybe you have a friend who struggles with public speaking and you can help each other out. So one of the things I do is to have people talk about something that they're naturally passionate about. Oftentimes as public speakers, you get asked to talk about something specific, whether it's a topic, whether it's a program, whatever it is, you get asked, you get told, this is your topic, right? But for this activity, it's not about necessarily what the topic is, but it's just about you developing your comfort with speaking in front of others. So pick something that you're passionate about. Well, it can be animals, it can be just about anything that you're passionate. It can be your family, it can be your career, it can be anything. Pick that thing that you're passionate about and just talk, right? Let yourself just talk about whatever it is, whether it's explaining why you're passionate, explaining what happened, explaining what you'd like to do long-term in that area. And one of those things I found this being beneficial for is as newer public speakers, there's a fear, or at least I know there was with me, of not having enough to talk about, right? How am I going to talk for that long? How am I going to share with people for that long? How do I keep people engaged for that long? And so if you start out with those things that you're passionate about, those things that you care about, and slowly develop how you put together your presentations, how you kind of talk through that, I feel that it'll be beneficial in helping you get more comfortable in speaking for longer periods of time as well. So that's the end of my presentation. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I truly, truly hope that you gain something from it and that it's beneficial. And once again, thank you so much for joining the Parent Academy for this Speaking with Confidence course.